Now, the face of HIV/AIDS is changing. Unlike 20 years ago, it is no longer a death sentence, but numbers are still climbing, and the demographic of those affected is also changing.
But it appears the traditional approach of disseminating AIDS education and information is experiencing fatigue. And professionals say a fresh approach is needed to fight against the spread of this disease and the stigma attached to it.
Well, ahead of World AIDS Day tomorrow, AM Live spoke with Laurindo and Avin, two HIV-positive gentlemen who are also very active in the fight against the spread of HIV/AIDS. We started off by asking them how they reacted to the news when they were first diagnosed with HIV.
I first found out I was HIV positive about 3 years ago. I guess it was when I was in a state of shock, so I didn't think too much about it. And because I had my friend with me, so I just went along with the motion of going through and see the doctor, getting my test done. Then after that, when the shock came in, then it felt like I hit a wall. Yeah.
Did you know much about being HIV positive, or was it a learning journey for you?
It was definitely a learning journey. Yeah, as much as any layperson knows about HIV positive or what HIV means, it's very different to experience it or to have it in you and to actually learn to cope with it, because it's more than just managing the virus. Yeah, it's also managing your people.
What about yourself, Laurindo? Because it's true, many of us always think illness will hit someone else, not us, you know. How did you first cope with it?
Well, it was a shock. I mean, I don't think anybody would say that they were expecting the news. And in my situation, I found out in the context of a visa situation, and at the same time, I had just started a relationship, so I had all of these things at the back of my mind when the news sunk in, and so for me, it was all this uncertainty was kind of weighing down on my shoulders at that time, but. Thankfully, my coping mechanisms kicked in, and I tried to approach it from a very practical sort of way and reach out to people.
Would you say that moment when you learn about it is the most difficult moment, and then once you accept it, does it become easier?
It gets easier, but the moment when you learn about it, it's actually not the toughest. It's when the problems come along, and when you meet people, or when people start rejecting you, or they give you stares, and when the discrimination comes, and these are the defining moments when you realize that, right, I'm not living with HIV, and people are going to treat me a little bit differently, they're going to view me a bit differently now. And that's when it becomes real for me.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit, because I think many of us are not too aware. We don't know very much about HIV. And as you mentioned, the immediate reaction is to ostracize the person. That seems to be what most people would do. Laurindo, I mean, what were some of the major things that you encountered after, sort of becoming ill? What did you find that...
Well, actually, there was never any point in since I got diagnosed where I was down and unable to take care of myself. I was, I guess, one of the lucky people who was able to manage quite well. But I think it was more the self-stigma, or the behavior that you put upon yourself that stops you from doing things.
Well, what did you tell yourself, or what did you do to yourself in that sense? What did you stop yourself from doing?
I stopped myself from interacting with people, with going out on dates. Sometimes I would be closing myself up from the world. I mean, that would be a good way to generalize it. But as time went on, I found ways to deal with this, and also to reach out to other people and find out that they were also in the same situation. And I think that's something that I even touched on before, is that once you work with it over time and you speak to people as well, you also find out that there's not just one way to deal with this. There's many different ways, and from learning that, you actually have a better chance of coping.
When you find yourself in a situation like that, I think the best help would be a support group or network, or people that you can relate with, or who can relate with you, right? So, which is why the two of you are actively involved in outreach programs to help people in similar situations. Well, tell us more about your work, and as you talk to these people, what are the sort of challenges that you encounter?
Some of the challenges are still very much what it is like 20 years ago. We're still trying to address the very basic myth about HIV, that HIV is no longer a death issue. It can be it can be managed like diabetes or any chronic disease now, and there are still myths about people not willing to work with people with HIV because they're worried that they might be infected just by being in the same room. So these are some of the issues that we face.
Just to pick up on that point, it's very manageable, and today, you know, you have access to advanced medicine that can really help you. Tell us in that sense, give us an insight into your lifestyle. How is it different or even very similar to an average person? I mean, when
what's your typical day like?
Yeah.
It's actually
Has it changed?
No, it hasn't changed much. Initially, yes, there was some adjustments I need to go through when coping with the medication or when I first started taking medication. But now I can eat anything, I do everything. Sports it's not an issue. I just can't stress myself out too much.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to add and reinforce that. I mean, from a lifestyle perspective, it is like managing another chronic illness. You know, you take your medication every day and you can get on with your life. But what I think makes HIV different from the rest, you know, and I'd like to avoid comparisons as much as possible, but HIV would be one of the few diseases where people would perhaps hide their medication from other people. You know, you'll take it every day, but you may not want to be showing the rest of the world that you're taking this medication. And I find that is kind of a defining factor between HIV and perhaps other illnesses.
Well, the fact that you guys are here and sharing the story is already a very bold step. I mean, many others in a similar circumstance would not want to tell the whole world about their situation. Is that a stumbling block? Do you think that when they can overcome that on their own, does that help you sort of cross that next hurdle?
Yes, but initially I had to choose very carefully who I came out to, my immediate friends, my family members, people who I knew or know that will provide me with some support. But of course, along the way, there were some people who I thought would have given me support, but
if there is one change, or you want to see, or the biggest change you want to see that will help you, you know, maybe reduce stigma or help you in your journey, what would it be?
I think one thing that could really make a significant difference is that more people living with HIV speak up. And not necessarily to the media, not necessarily to television, you know, I mean, I think these are very extraordinary cases. But if people are willing to speak to their friends, to their family, to their partners, that has a significant impact on the stigma and discrimination that we're talking about. If you're able to share this and be honest with the people in your inner circle, that can go a long way in you know, changing the atmosphere around people.
But do you think society is ready for that yet? Because in some parts, maybe in a more Asian culture especially, or more reserved, and again the stigma is slightly stronger. So if you say it, you might feel more ostracized than you were before, and so you're trying to find that balance between being left out or being included, you see. So
well, I guess it's a journey that I have to go through, and whoever I choose to come out to has to go through as well. And it's also part of, say, when I came out to my parents, I couldn't just, hey, I'm HIV positive, and then leave it at this. So would have to guide them through and let them know what it is to be living HIV, that I'm as I am, and that I can still work, I can still contribute. So it's also to help them through that journey with you.
I mean, hopefully they will understand that at the end of the day, you're trying to be honest with them, and you're trying to do something to build that relationship with them, or whoever they may be.
What is the message you want to send to people today? I think, you know, for many years it's always about practicing safe sex. You know, I mean, is there something new that needs to be shared? Because Professor Roy Chan had written in an article that, you know, the traditional methods are no longer as effective as they used to be. Do you guys have a different take on that?
I think we must underscore the relevance still that condom and condom promotion is still very critical. But testing, of course, is we need to promote that more within the community. Sex education as well. There are a number of different ways. The latest thing that people are talking about in the global HIV community is how about treatment as prevention, early treatment for people living with HIV, and a number of different technologies that I think have a lot of potential. But what this will require is for people living with HIV or those most at risk of HIV have to have much closer consultations with their health professionals, with support groups as well, to be able to get this information and be informed as to what would work for them.
Right.
In your outreach effort, as you talk to them, what helps them the most, you think? And do you have any anecdotes to share with us?
When I first started 4 years ago, condom was a taboo subject, and so we had to repackage it so it becomes something of more fun to have, more discreet to keep, because a lot of people can't bring condoms home because if their parents find out. So we need to repackage it and make it look at very nice tissue packs. So now people are more willing to, and they are more open to taking it. So I guess that helps. And
is it something as simple as the packaging helps the perception? What about you, Laurindo?
Well, I find it interesting because I see in this day and age, I've been noticing globally that there are fewer people showing up for support group sessions, as valuable as they are, and some people do need that face-to-face contact. But in this day and age of social media and Facebook, people are finding alternative ways to reach out and find out that they're not alone. So they're using secret Facebook groups to reach out to each other to get that mutual support. My own organization is trying to set up a new online peer support service for people living with HIV as well. So I find it interesting how new technologies are being adapted for this. Yeah.
Do you think there should also be a support group or an awareness program that reaches out to those that are close to those who have HIV? I mean, the support to support the person, you know what I mean? So that group of people, because I think, as you mentioned, many of them are unaware or slightly ignorant about the whole issue and may therefore ostracize you, not by choice, but just through the lack of awareness.
Yes, I would think that would have been helpful for my family members if they have somewhere to go to, and not just getting information from me. They could have gone to call hotline or visit a website for more information.
Yeah, I mean, I would have never imagined when I told my parents 8 years ago about my diagnosis that this year my father and I would do a video, a global HIV awareness video, and he would be joining with me and sending a message out to parents who are going through the same situation, and that got distributed on YouTube. It's still out there, and I think tapping him and him understanding what other parents may need, or friends or partners or what have you, talking about providing support for people who are living with supporting people living with HIV. I think that really resonated with many people.
Well, I'm going to throw some numbers at you because based on last year's figures, more than half of the newly diagnosed are in the late stages of infection. Newly diagnosed infections among men who have sex with men outnumbered those in heterosexuals by 49 to 43%. So do you think this has sort of influenced the outreach approach? Men
who have sex with men have always been a key population that we try and reach out to, and it still is. So, but we're just trying to find out how we can better reach out to, or how to change our messages. We're still exploring how to better engage the ground. Yeah. I mean, I think those statistics echo what is happening regionally and also globally as well. I want to stress, HIV is definitely not a gay disease. The virus does not discriminate. However, unfortunately, men who have sex with men bear a very heavy weight of the burden of HIV infections globally. And I think some of the new strategies that are happening now are much more targeted interventions, not just talking about condoms, but also how do we improve health services? How do we make them more accessible to these people? Because often these people feel that they're not able to access services because they have to hide their identity or things like that. We have to create services that are much more open and able to serve their needs. Yeah, and unfortunately, for example, in the Philippines, where I'm from, we are seeing a rise in AIDS-related deaths. And in this day and age where we have treatment, these deaths are preventable. And it's saddening to see that we're going back in time. And we really should be
doing more about this, the community as well as the general population and everybody involved. We really need to be doing more because we're seeing things that are preventable.
Laurindo and Avin there joining us for that interview. They joined us earlier. Tomorrow, Saturday, December 1st, is World AIDS Day.
And if you'd like to find out more about the work of Action for AIDS, we've got their website address on screen right now. It's afa.org.sg.